One time you wanted to work in concept art in gaming. Then you met someone that works in gaming. And you know what? I think you're good. It's why Arcanaloth, that exact experience right there is why I get really upset when somebody says that a game is only good because of passion. I am not trying to say there's no passion in gaming dev. What I am trying to say is that equating the success of a team with passion implies that a project failing or a game not doing well is a lack of passion. And I don't see how anybody in their right mind stays in the gaming industry for any reason other than passion. They have to love what they do. That includes games that don't even make it to market. That includes games that fail. Like, you just don't... That's why I get upset. Not because good games don't have passionate devs, but because that is not a good way of determining if a game is good or bad. Passionate devs are everywhere in the industry. The artists, the voice actors, the QA. There are a lot of people that work in QA for really crappy salaries because they're like top-end raters who think it'd be cool to test and help balance games at work. I know some of them. That's what they do. So, it just isn't, it's not an easy field. There are many fields that are not easy. And so just to equate people who are good at it immediately with it some level of conviction, I just disagree with that. Wanting something to be good doesn't make it good. It also overlooks people who look beyond their passion and maybe said, hey, I'm really passionate about making good games, and so I'm going to go get an MBA to understand how the business side of games works, even though I don't like an MBA. And all those days that they're struggling through their MBA and it's not for them, but they're doing it for a greater goal, they may not be passionate every one of those days, but they're passionate about the end goal. And so it starts to also equate that moments that they don't feel passionate, you have to wonder if then, if they see all that crap on the internet, it's like, well, then maybe you don't belong here. And that's not true. If you have a long-term goal that you're passionate about, some of the days along the way, you will not be passionate. Some of the days you'll be feeling a little under the weather. Some of the days you'll have a spouse that's home with a sick kid and that's on your mind. Some of those days you'll have a dog that needs to go to the vet when you get home. You'll have had a flat tire on the way to work and you're just gonna be doing your job. You're gonna be going through the motions. And those are probably not the days where you make your most inspired contribution, the days you reflect back on at some award ceremony. But those days are important. You do not only show up to work. It's like, well, I was going to show up for work, but I just wasn't feeling inspired. Okay, well, your job was to draw 500 assets in the next 4 months. So, you know, is your plan to draw 500 in one day? Maybe you should have worked on some of the things that were a little more run-of-the-mill that also needed to go in. Because we have deadlines. Because we're paying you and we have a limited amount of money. So like, that's what, like that exact thing of like, I met somebody, I wanted to go into games, I love games, and then I met somebody that was in gaming, and I didn't want that job, even though I'm passionate about games, is what tells me anybody who stays, passion has to be part of it. It has to be part of it. Because I have had friends who have lived through some horrific work hours, and there's no way they were passionate under crunch. And crunch seems to be something that naturally happens in the industry unless an immense amount of organization and forethought goes in. If you do not have like absolutely brilliant project managers, crunch seems to be an inevitability. You may not have it all the time, but you will have it at least once. And there's no way people are feeling passionate during crunch. But they stay because they know on the other side, I'm still in gaming, and that's where I want to be. A lot of devs are passionate about making games, but many aren't passionate about the project they're working on because they don't get... Yeah, not everybody gets to steer the ship. And sometimes you got to pay your bills, right? So if you want to be an artist that works on cool games, sometimes you're an artist that just works on a game to get you to that next game. And I assume when you start to look at these projects that are like 5 and 7 years in the making, you might work on a game through a portion of its development that gets scrapped. Or you might work on, like, now that we have games that have been in development for like 7 years, the idea that you could be 10 years out of school and you've worked on 1, 2, 3 games, like that's crazy. Can you imagine your entire career being summed up with less than half a dozen titles? There's some pretty good chances that maybe you really didn't have a lot of control over which projects you got put on. But you wanted to work in gaming. And the project you want to work on said, hey, you need experience. So you went and got experience. So the next time one comes along, you're eligible. I have some friends in architecture that work for firms that are traditionally known for buildings that don't get built. And when they first got out of school, they were excited for the work. And at a certain point, they're like, it'd be pretty cool if this thing just actually got built. And I think like it would be a different feeling to work on a game you're proud of, and then it just does adequate, but you're proud of it, and a game that you're really good at your job and you don't feel super invested in, but the players who like it are just so appreciative. And I think both those would have positives. Like I could absolutely see the value in knowing that you improved somebody's life. And I can also see the value in working on something that you're excited about. And those are two different things. And if you could have both, oh my God, that'd be amazing. But like, life is full of compromises. And if you can get one of those things sometimes and at the same time have enough money to go, you know, help your kids have a good life, and you and your spouse have a good life, and you get to take good vacations, and it takes care of your health, and you get to retire on time and on your plan, and you get to, like, there are aspects of a job that there's a reason it's paid, is the compensation helps do all these other things that are also valuable. And so if it helps you have the skill set that in your free time you're getting to build a game on the side with skills that you're mastering at work, and that feels really great, whatever it is, I do think that passion is universal. Like, across all game companies have passion present in them. I'm not saying every employee is passionate every day. I'm not saying every employee is passionate ever while they have that job. Some people might say, hey, I want to work in game dev. I have a buddy that's in sales that we met in college, and he's in food science. So he works in the food industry. And his first 2 or 3 jobs outside of school, he was pretty pumped about, like just stoked about what they were doing. And he got to do cool stuff. And then he got the chance for his wife to have her dream job, but he was going to have to give up his job. But they've got a kid that they just adore, and they moved to a part of the country that he loves. And so he took a sales job that's just a job, and he's good at it, and it comes easy. And when the work ends, he doesn't take it home with him. So when he's off, and he spends his time hiking in the mountains and with his son, and supports his wife, who is living her dream right now, who had a lot of jobs that were fine while he was doing his dream job. So it feels like, hey, it's my turn. It pays well enough for them to make all their goals, and maybe in the future he'll be able to take everything he is continuing to learn and grow at this job. He'll be able to take that and go into a job that he's excited about again. But it's a good trade. It's just a trade. The overall compensation package of his life is something he feels really good about, but that's not necessarily the work that he does on a day-to-day basis. And that's still worth it. And like, I can imagine that happens in gaming dev. I know multiple couples that they met each other because they were working in QA together, or they were playing a game together. They were both passionate about games. They both worked in games. They ended up married. One of you gets a chance to work on some project, some unannounced project. You move somewhere so they can commute into some secret studio at one of these major publishers. And then you move there with them, because your job maybe doesn't allow remote, or you move to a different position in your company that does allow remote or whatever. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm not as happy about it as I was about where I was, but like the overall quality of our life is really taking a step forward, and that's worth it. And it doesn't mean that game won't be good for your contribution. Just like it doesn't mean that if they replace you with somebody who's just a bigger nerd and is like, yeah, I'm super passionate, that they're going to be better than you. They may not be. Passion's just not the best indicator of output. Definitely an ingredient. And so I think for stack ranking would be really hard, because if you have a team that's working really well together and gelling really well together, and they're creative and they're all growing together and they're helping each other, and you built this network where this small team is all reaching out and teaching and growing, and everybody performed above expectations, and then some executive comes in and goes, well, according to my spreadsheet, you need to pick a favorite, and you need to pick one that's probably on the verge of being fired. My team of 6 performed 300% above all your metrics, and I don't want to let go of a single one of them. Pick one. I'm not going to do that. So I think that's where he got stuck. Is I think he felt Blizzard's going through a hard time, and everybody I have right now is crushing it. And you're telling me to put somebody on the developing path, which means that they like may not be eligible for profit sharing. They may struggle with promotions or lateral movement within the company. Like, you're telling me to do something. I'm not gonna do that. Gaming dev looks like a hard industry. A lot of industries, when you look too closely, look like a hard industry.